I've got good value shit to bring to this recording for once.
Let's get into it then. FA Cup, we always look forward to the magic of it. First one that we're going to talk about is Fulham versus Crystal Palace. I think there's a lot to talk about in this game. So, there's injury news that's going to impact it. There's also, I guess, tactics, things like that. And one team is coming into it with a lot of good form. But I guess throwing it to both of you guys, I don't know if you want to go first, Ollie or Sam, but what are your initial thoughts of this matchup in a kind of is it North London? No, it's North and South London derby in the FA Cup.
Yeah. Do you know what? You go, Ollie, because in fact, you're probably going to nick my stats, but you go first.
Yeah, I mean, I'd see the AI's got Fulham slight favourites of 41%, but I'm not sure I go along with that, to be honest. I mean, Palace looking at the form table for 2025 for the Premier League earlier on, and Palace sit 4th in 2025, and they've played one less game than Brighton, who sit in 3rd. So come into this in red hot form. It's at Craven Cottage, and both of these teams, in fact, have better numbers away from home. Palace in particular, I mean, they're 4th in the Premier League table for away games this season. They've only lost one game away from home in all competitions since the 21st of October. Obviously, they beat Fulham just a month ago, 2-0 at Craven Cottage, and Fulham only created 0.3 XG in that game. So all of the stats point to Crystal Palace, I think. You never really know. I personally, I see this one potentially being a draw. Of all the 4 games, I think this is the one that could go to penalties. If I was going to make a pick, which I always do, I'd go for under 4 in this game.
Going conservative then. I'm literally, for this one, I disagree on... There is one game that I think could go to extra time and pens, and it's not this one, so it all will be revealed on that. Ooh. For this one, obviously I picked up as well that the reverse fixture was 2-0 and Fulham, they didn't even have a shot on target in that game. But I think the single biggest thing in this whole round of FA Cup quarterfinals is going to be the fact that every single team is playing either 2 or 3 days later in the Prem. And it's almost... a lot of it can be predicted, I reckon, based on who they're playing. So Fulham have got Arsenal 2 days later. Palace have got Southampton 2 days later. But Fulham obviously have a lot more to play for in the Prem. They're 4 points off the Champions League. Palace, not really going to get relegated, not really challenging for European spots. So for me, I actually think this is going to be a pretty easy Palace win. I'm going to put my neck on the line there. For the sake of clickbait. Easy Palace win.
I think I do actually lean towards more your side, Sam, because just kind of looking at their recent form as well, Crystal Palace have kind of hit into that upper gear. Glasner's tactics have just kind of, really worked. The only thing, Ollie, you're right that there's probably not going to be a lot of goals in this. Crystal Palace, the fact that they kind of scored in terms of it, they topped the table in the last 5 in terms of their XG, but as always, they kind of underperformed that. So only 10 goals from a 12.66 XG in their last 5 Premier League games. And so, there's solidarity there as well. They've only conceded 3 times in these matches that I've kind of mentioned, 3 clean sheets in their last 5. It's going to be a tight match, but I think coupled up with the fact that Eze had a good kind of time with England, he scored that amazing goal, Gay got some good minutes in his legs. I think John Philip Mateta coming back is going to be the big difference between the two. And I don't know if he's involved in any of your thinking with kind of, the scoring as well, because Sam, you kind of said during the midweek that you'd always kind of back Kane in most situations. Are you going to back Mateta as a kind of talismanic scorer?
I don't put him in that same bracket. And also with the Palace, that underperformed XG, I'd be interested to see Mateta's numbers. Actually, I don't have them to hand.
You mentioned Eze's XG numbers. Quite an interesting stat on Eze. He is the biggest underperformer of his XG in the entire Premier League this season. Whoa. No player he's only scored 2 Premier League goals, and he's got an XG of over 6 off the top of my head, maybe more. So
do you know what that makes me think, though, with that goal with England? Because it was a real proper confidence-boosting goal, that, skin a few and then bang it in for your country. For your first goal, it could start fulfilling those numbers. So and maybe I'm pretty sure
Palace have got some good fixtures ahead. Obviously, we saw what they did at the end of last season when they went on an absolute tear and basically slapped everyone that was put in front of them. I would not be surprised, as you mentioned, to see Eze kick into gear now, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him score 5 or 6 goals before the end of the season.
So we're saying for this FA Cup quarter-final, Palace to win 3-0 and Eze to get all three.
You're saying that. I think it'd be interesting to see with Mateta, because you mentioned the Southampton game a couple of days later. Obviously, he's got that he's had that plastic surgery on his ear, that horror challenge. Which, do you know what? I didn't really buy into that. Like, people
Game's
saying
gone.
he should get nicked for assault and all that. I mean, come on, it looked horrible in slow motion, but he was going for the ball, man. Anyway, besides the point. Be interesting to see what they do with him. Do they just chuck him straight in, or do they have one eye on the Premier League, like you say? I think Palace.
I think Jimenez was never the same after getting knocked on the head.
I do think that every team that are in the FA Cup now, though, will prioritise it, because it's opened up, hasn't it? Most of the big boys are out.
See, I disagree with one team, and we're going to come on to them a little bit later as well.
Oh, I think I know who you mean. Yeah.
Yes.
Preston.
Yeah, they're really gunning for Champions League spots, Preston.
Yeah.
I do like the shout with Eze. I don't know. I'd have to look historically, but he might do. But I'm not agreeing with you, Sam, that it's going to be a lot of goals. I think it's probably, in terms of, it's going to be a tight one. But I do see Crystal Palace edging it, just because they have that form. Fulham have got a lot to play for, whereas Palace, they doing their usual. They're always about safe, and then they kind of kick on towards the end of the season. And that's probably why they kind of got there in 2016 for that kind of infamous, what was that manager's name that did the awful dad dance?
Pardew.
Yes,
Pardew,
Alan
yeah.
Pardew. So we might see like a Pardew moment with Ollie Glasner. I don't know if there's...
Ollie Glasner with his cardigan on throwing shapes. That's what I see. That's what I want to see on the touchline. I don't know what move he would pull out. It wouldn't be a Pardew. It'd be like one of them.
I mean, is there an Austrian equivalent? I don't know. But I guess just kind of finishing it up then, what's everybody's predictions, just so that people can kind of follow along and maybe choose their own as well?
I'm going rogue. Like, jokes aside, this is going to sound rogue, but I'm going to go Palace to win 2-0. I think it could be a 1-0, 2-0, because Fulham can keep it extremely tight. But I don't think they're going to play necessarily a full strength starting 11. And I think Palace have to chuck the kitchen sink at the FA Cup.
I'm going to go with under 4 goals in the game, and for it to go to extra time and pens, i.e. draw at full time.
I'm going to go Crystal Palace win, probably to 0 as well, but it's going to be very, low. So I think, under 2.5 goals is probably
nice, keeping it tight.
So let's kind of carry on over to Brighton, Nottingham Forest. I think we've kind of alluded to them already. But this could be an exciting one if it's any repetition of what happened earlier in the season with the 7-0 scoreline. But realistically, I don't think that's going to happen again. What are the talking points that you want to kind of bring to the fore, Ollie, in terms of this match? Because, Nottingham Forest is pushing for Champions League. Brighton are kind of doing their own thing, but they've kind of hit form recently. So what is the kind of thing that's going to decide this match?
Yeah, I think you touched on it earlier. I'm assuming Nottingham Forest were the team that you were referencing when you were saying they're the one team left in the competition that probably won't prioritise it over the league competition. I'd agree with that. I think that they'll be looking to qualify for the Champions League more than they'll be looking to go through. People are going to call me an FB ref merchant, but I'm going to bring it up again. The form table and the XG table. Forest shocked me when I was looking at the numbers. They're 14th in the table for XG created. They've scored 49 goals from 36 XG this season, and there's one man who's principally responsible for that, and his name is Christopher Wood. But as I think we're all aware now, he seems to, and it's not been confirmed, been injured during international duty. So be interesting to see how that pans out for the rest of the season. I think it could be a massive blow for them.
It was huge. You can't overstate his importance to that team. In the last few games, he's just been so on form. He's just found the back of the net in impossible situations, and so that's the huge difference in this game.
Back to hat-trick as well for New Zealand, didn't he?
Yeah, he's probably their most important player. I know they were playing Alanga really high up, weren't they? And beyond Chris Wood in the past couple of games, but Wood was still the one flicking on the balls to him, holding it up, bringing players in. So he does the full job of a target man centre forward so well, and they're going to miss that so much. One more thing I'd like to raise is Brighton's form since that 7-0. I watched that 7-0 and Brighton played such a weird formation. They played I think it was a 4-1 4-1, doing the maths, 4-1-5. And they got spanked, and they deserved it, to be honest. It was a bit disrespectful the way they turned up and tried to go all out attack at Forest. But since then, they must have had some serious bollockings, because they won 6 in a row straight off the rip after that, and then they drew the last game with City. So they've been the informed team in the Premier League since then, and I think they'll be wanting to get one back on Forest, and I think they will do here. I'm backing Brighton to win this one.
This is why I didn't want Ollie to go first. I knew.
He's stalling the stats again.
Literally got written down. Haven't lost since this. Won 6 of those 7.
Yeah.
2 points that I would raise, though, is that Forest, as we know, may be priority and probably will be prioritising the league over this, but also in the cup so far, that's kind of shown, because Forest kind of laboured through. They had draws against Ipswich and Exeter. Brighton, on the other hand, knocked out Chelsea and Newcastle. And then Brighton have got Villa on Tuesday. Forest have got United, but a day earlier on Monday. So it's a really tight schedule for Forest. They're probably not prioritising this over the league. So I also fancy Brighton to get revenge in this one. It's mad, isn't it? They've just got beat 7-0 in the head-to-head, and we're predicting them to win. But I think I'm pretty set on a Brighton win here, yeah.
I think you're totally right. And also I want to bring to the fore João Pedro. I think he's kind of found his own in the last few matches, and he's probably going to be a game decider, because not only has he been kind of banging in the goals, but he's been quite a creative figure. I think he's had 6 key passes in his last few games. He's just looked really, really sharp and on form, and he's somebody that struggled with kind of injuries before, but now that he's back to his best, he is looking on it. And so with our kind of predictions in a moment, I think he's got to be included in some of the discussions, maybe some sort of goal involvement, maybe not a goal, but he could have an assist as well, because he looks vital to that attack. I don't know if you two agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got me to thank for that, mate. Every time I sell him in my FPL team, he seems to go on absolute tear. So
you personally are in charge of João Pedro's form.
Yeah, exactly. He owes me a check. He needs to send me some royalties, that fella, because honestly, I own him for a full season. He does nothing apart from the odd pen, and then when I sell him, he starts tearing it up. But he's a funny player, João Pedro, because you kind of watch the game and you think, what position does this guy play? He's like hovering around the sort of anywhere in the final third. He's not really a box striker, but he's not really a number 10, but he just seems to be involved in everything when he's playing well. He seems to just pop up and create and score, and now Danny Welbeck's back. He seems to bounce off Danny Welbeck well, because he does provide that presence in and around the box. And then they've just got so much pace off the wings, haven't they? And so many options. If you've got Matoma running at you, and you've got Ruta, who's been playing really well, Nkuba Minter, so many players who can just run at defenders and cause problems. So when they're firing, Brighton, they're definitely one of the best teams in the league.
So predictions for both of you. Sam, I'm going to let you go first this time, because you don't want Ollie kind of
late now
looking at your homework, checking off.
I'm gonna back Brighton win, and I wouldn't put my neck on the line for anything else in this game, because both of these sides are ridiculous in terms of how inconsistent they are. And you wouldn't surprise you, if it's 7-0 the other way. Forest have been on the other end of a 7-0, haven't they, this season? They're just
got beat 4-0 by Bournemouth, didn't they, recently?
Yeah. So
5-0, sorry. 5-0.
The fact that that was it. So the fact that they're also going to be playing probably a second team for this game, it's really unpredictable. But the only thing I would back is a Brighton win.
I would back a Brighton win as well, to be honest. I'm half tempted to say by a winning margin of 2 or more, but I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to say Brighton to win.
So I'm going to go as well, just the Brighton win. I think that's a trio of agreement there. So I want to now bring it on to something before we get on to a bit more analysis. I actually want to go on a bit of a retrospective, have some nice memories. Let's talk about maybe your two guys, and I'll select one as well. Best FA Cup moments from kind of recent years as well. Not too far back. We're not going to talk about, some obscure thing that happened maybe 50 odd years ago. Like, what are the recent memories? Because
Ollie's the only one old enough to remember them anyway.
I was going to say 1953, mate. FA Cup final, Blackpool.
I'm just going into high school.
Yeah.
Easy one for me, easy one. 4-3 United against Liverpool at Old Trafford. Sends us through, and then obviously we end up winning the FA Cup.
I guess my favourite memory, and I'm sorry to have to do this to you, Sam, but It's the Welle goal, Welbeck scoring against Manchester United on our way to an FA Cup victory. It was a beautiful moment as an Arsenal fan because we'd been under the cosh so many times against you guys. Over the years, you just betted us so many times at Old Trafford, and for once we got the leg up, and it actually counted for quite a lot as well because we went through to the latter stages. Also have a soft spot for that kit because it's kind of groovy, the kind of blue one and everything. But throwing it to you, Ollie, anything that you want to bring?
Mine's a bittersweet one as a Northwestern lad. I don't have any affiliation with Wigan Athletic, but them winning it in 2013 with a last-minute goal against Man City at Wembley, and then also getting relegated from the Premier League. And I think this just shows the sort of the modern nature of it, because Wigan haven't been back in the Premier League since they got relegated then, and they now sit 18th in League One. And this is why managers don't prioritise the cups anymore, for that exact reason. But just as a fan,
wouldn't you, as a fan? Would you have
Blackpool,
exactly. If they'd have gone down in, was it 2010 or 11, you got relegated. Yeah. If you'd have won the cup, but you suppose you ended up with the bad part of that deal anyway.
Yeah, but I would, if we were coasting, fighting relegation every year, and you said you can win the FA Cup with a last-minute winner, but you'll go down and then take your chances from there, I'd take it every 10 days out of the
week. What about
mate.
Not only go down, but it's not taking your chances, you get relegated again, you're in League One. You don't come back.
Well, we're already in League One, so don't make that
exactly. That's what I mean. You still go on about the 1953 FA Cup.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. So I'll go with Wigan winning it. I think they were the last team, weren't they? They were definitely the last minnows to win it. Might have even been the last team out of the top 6 to win it.
I remember Portsmouth winning it as well, kind of doing something similar, but they go down the next year. Like, it was a Harry Redknapp masterclass, and
they probably one of the most unreal squads ever to go down. Would it not have had like Crouch, Defoe, Luar, Kevin Prince Boateng? Probably not all in the same year. But otherwise, it'd be locked up.
Nico Cranshaw, terrific little player.
Oh, how did I forget him? Oh my god,
he is Harry Redknapp's man. Like, I don't know what it is that Nico Cranshaw has over Harry Redknapp, but he's in every team.
Probably still employs him now.
Yeah,
just to do little odds and sods around the house.
But let's bring it on to, I guess, the potential minnows, the small team that could go on to win it. Preston.
Founders of the Football League, by the way.
No chance.
Whooping arms about the minnows shout.
No chance, right.
But what I would say is half of my family are Preston fans, and they're not here on merit, are they? Let's be honest. This run to the quarterfinals was outrageous. They've played Charlton, Wickham, and Burnley rested all the players for it. So they just farted and ended up in the FA Cup quarterfinals. So I feel like I don't think there's going to be much to say in it. I don't think they'll do much in this quarter.
Oh, mate, go easy on them, mate. This is the most excitement they've had in about 40 years. Normally, they're sort of sat mid-table in the Championship with nothing to play for at this stage of the season. So, chuck the dog a bone.
It's true. It is true. But that is what makes me think
all the Liverpool and United fans in Preston won't have anything to do this weekend, so the stadium might be full for once.
Exactly, yeah. It's so true.
I mean, they don't come into this game with particularly good form. 2 wins in their last 5, but lots of draws in their kind of recent form. And then if you look at their kind of data in the Championship, -5 goal difference and a -0.04 XG difference per 90. Not particularly strong unit. One thing that might influence the game is Ollie Watkins is likely to be out, but then everything else goes in kind of Aston Villa's favour. 1 loss and 4 wins in the last 5 games. Unai Emery is a cup specialist.
Yeah.
But the only thing again is, I guess, like Nottingham Forest, will Aston Villa's attentions be on the Champions League? Could that have any influence on players rested? Could they treat Preston with too much respect and we see actually a cup upset?
Is it possible to treat Preston with too much respect?
Too much disrespect, you mean?
So Villa are playing Sunday, Tuesday and Saturday. So they're bound to rest players. However, as we know, Villa's depth, especially with their, starting their forward players, is unreal. So they've got great depth. So even their second string players are going to, I reckon, blow Preston away, and they'll be wanting to start as well. But Preston are capable of keeping it quite tight. in terms of chances conceded. So I don't think they'll completely dismantle him with it being a second Villa team probably as well. Although it's quarter-final, it all depends on how much the clubs and the managers actually go for this, because if you're Unai Emery, and obviously the league matters a lot, and you've gone far in the Champions League, you've got a chance to sort of potentially get back in it, an outside chance. Do you then drop it all to go and try and win the FA Cup when you're playing again on Tuesday? It's a tough one, but you can't ignore an FA Cup win, can you?
So I guess to both of you, predictions, Ollie, scoreline or anything else that people.
Well, there's one more thing that I don't know how much to read into this because obviously it's not a Premier League game, but the FBref merchants at it again. Did you know Villa are 16th in the table for away form? Their away form all season has stunk. They've only been good at Villa Park all season. I know they've won a couple of games away in the Champions League as well. They beat Club Brugge, but they are not a good team when they travel.
They are going to the Deepdale though, not the Bernabeu this time.
Yeah, no. As much as it pains me to say though, I fancy Villa to go through, but both teams to score in 90 minutes. I do think Preston will score because I think Villa are shaky at the back, and it's their FA Cup final at Preston.
I'm going to go for Villa and over 2. In fact, no, I'm not going over 2.5 goals because, like I say, Preston can keep it tight. Villa likely starting a not full strength team potentially, so it's a tough one. I fancy Villa to win. I wouldn't even back both teams to score. I'm just going to be a soft twat and go Villa to win, which I'm sure you get remarkable odds on that.
Yeah, 1-2, mate.
It's not 2 to 5,
2 to 5 on some of them. Well, I think we're not factoring in here that like some of these games could easily be 0-0 as well and go to extra time and pens. Villa to qualify will be like 1-10, I bet.
I bet Asensio still don't get a start.
Poor lad. But you know what? I'm going to throw it in maybe with my controversial pick of this week. I'm going to say it's going to go to extra time. I can see this one being a later one. I think Villa do go through, but I wouldn't even be surprised if it goes to penalties, proper tense, because what Ollie has mentioned there, the kind of away day factor, this is the World Cup final, this is the Champions League final for Preston. They're going to put everything into it, and if they manage a draw across the 90 minutes, that's basically a win for them in their mindset. That will go down in folklore around those parts. Yeah. So the final one, which I think is going to be a difficult one to call as well, because they've both kind of been intermittent recently. Bournemouth versus Manchester City. Manchester City are the kind of FA Cup specialist recently, but they've also been the Premier League specialists, and they've completely fallen off this season. I think their recent form, that they can't seem to put anything together. Sam, what is your kind of talking points for this one?
Well, the big one is that City are obviously the only team left who have won the FA Cup in the last 47 years. So fingers crossed, my toes crossed, everything crossed that they go out, not just as a United fan, but just to make this interesting. A new team winning the FA Cup out of the rest of them, I'd take any of them winning it.
Yeah.
A Brighton, is it possible to have a Brighton Palace final?
Ooh,
or are they on the same side? Because that would be a bit of a derby, wouldn't it?
With this game, Bournemouth against City, this is a proper spin it any way you want kind of narrative game, isn't it? You could say Bournemouth have been brilliant this season, but you could also say they've not won in the last 5. Yeah. Man City have been all over the place, but also they've won 2 of the last 5 games. But spin it the other way, City have won 7 out of the last 8 visits to the Vitality Stadium. Pep Guardiola's last chance of silverware this season. Can you imagine Pep going a season at this City without winning a trophy? It's hard to think, innit? And also, Bournemouth, would be their first ever FA Cup, and most of those players have not won silverware before. It's going to be an interesting one. I would love to say I think that Bournemouth will win this one, but I'm going to go with the AI personally. I think City will just have too much experience.
I'd like to ask, am I sharing my screen right now?
No.
You're not.
I've nothing left to cover, Ollie. You've used all my stats again. So. No, so the other
just
thing
invite me next time, Jason. Don't bother.
Cut out the middle, man. For this one, the only thing I was going to say about the 2-1, Kirk has got 2 assists. I love that. 2 assists against City.
Yes.
But Bournemouth, having gone those 5 games without a win, I genuinely think it was since I made a TikTok that said Bournemouth are the best team in the league right now. So that's
you've
got the
them.
you've got the João Pedro thing. I've got Bournemouth's form. But for this one, I'm just saying both teams to score and City to qualify, because I think this for me is the one that could go to extra time, because you could easily see it being 1-1, 2-1.
Yeah, you could, yeah.
So yeah, I fancy this one potentially to go to extra time. Both teams to score and City to qualify would be my pick for this one, though.
I think this will be the best game to watch, I reckon.
This is probably not good for podcast betting based on kind of betting data or all the stuff like that. But I'm going to go and back Bournemouth. You know, why not? Let's say,
that.
Yeah, Manchester City, their defence is not what it once was. You know, in the last few games, they have been quite leaky, with 10 goals conceded in their last 6 games, only 2 clean sheets in that. This is in the Premier League, by the way, not across all fixtures, but just in the Premier League. You know, Bournemouth, like you said, Ollie, they've already kind of dispatched them once this season. They're becoming, you know, the big 6 specialists. I don't see why they don't do it in front of their home fans. They've got everything here going for them, apart from maybe form. But Manchester City don't have the form. They've looked, you know, pretty clueless in a lot of games this season. And, you know, Erling Haaland, quite often, he's seen as this beast, but so far this season, he's had nothing to feast on. He's you know, been a bit of a pauper out there. And so I think this one is for Bournemouth for the taking. They're going to make history and get to that semi. And I'll be backing them, because I can't stand Manchester City either.
I was about to say, I think the only people in the world that are wanting City to win this are City fans and potentially Southampton fans, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I can't envision anyone wanting City to go through. How can you not want a new FA Cup winner for the first time in 50 years, basically?
Yeah. No,
and yeah, when
we need something to cling on to, don't we? Because the title race is wrapped up and the relegation battle is wrapped up. So at least enter the FA Cup to provide us with a bit of something to get our teeth stuck into.
Yeah,
I was actually pretty gutted when I saw that it was FA Cup following on from international break. It was just really rubbing salt in the wounds. That, however, after doing this preview and having a look and, you know, seeing the narratives that are at play, I'm pretty excited for this weekend now. Yeah. Especially when all these bets land, boys. We're going to be rich. We're going to be filthy, stinking rich.
We're all going to make it. And then we've got a round of Premier League games to look forward to midweek. So it's feasting time, fellas. Let's get stuck into it.
Yeah. Did we have any like head-to-head wagers then? We were all in agreement on quite a lot of the picks. We all fancy Palace. We all fancy Brighton. We all fancy Villa, and then Jason fancies Bournemouth instead of City. The reason I'm backing City is mainly the I want to jinx it. Like I want to put all my money on City, so then it's a win-win or a lose-lose, depending on which way you look at it.
So if you lose your house, you'd be happy though that a new team wins the FA Cup. So
exactly,
it's Wigan Athletic all over again, isn't it?
So that's our roundup and preview of the FA Cup fixtures this weekend. We're hoping for some shocks and that Manchester City tumble out. But for now, that is a goodbye from all of us. Make sure to check out the Numbers Game website. Get your best information ahead of the weekend's fixtures. But the best of luck with whatever you choose. And a goodbye for now.